going to get started. I'd like to introduce Selectman Nick Camposano, who's the Selectman's rep to the fire, as well as Chief O'Brien. Before we do that, I'll turn it over to Dan, who has a couple of announcements.
Just to remind everybody, what we're going to do is for the next Tuesday, Thursday, we're going to have the additional questions. So over this weekend, what you're going to do is try to look through your budget, get all your additional questions out, because we'll have the library coming on Tuesday night for extra questions. Then we'll do the, well, I call it general government, but it's really administration and all those 12 groupings. So Sue will be there, and any other of those division directors that Sue might bring with her. That's on Tuesday. We'll also, when we're done, talk about Parks and Rec. We just heard Rick's dad had passed away this morning, so we don't expect him to be available Monday or Tuesday night. And so Scott can answer as many questions as we possibly can on Parks and Rec. That'll be Tuesday. On Thursday, we're going to see if Pat Sullivan could be there. We haven't talked to him because he left after lunch. We'll do fire on, so Chief O'Brien will be over, and whoever else he wants to bring on Tuesday the following week. And on Thursday that following week we'll do DPW. Okay, so get all your questions going, because that's what we really want to pull out and get everything we want. We'll start at 7 o'clock, and if we get done early, we get done earlier. Don't forget, our target is 9:20 to 9:30.
Say again, Thursday, I'm sorry.
Thursday is library, administration. Let me start from the beginning.
Can you send us an email?
Yeah, we talked about it. I can send an email as well, maybe. So Tuesday will be administration, library, Parks and Rec. The first Thursday will be police. The following week, Tuesday, is fire. That following week, Thursday, will be DPW. And that'll be 4 weeks of all the town. Then we'll discuss whether on the following week on Tuesday, because we won't have the school budget yet, if how we want to go in, how we want to do our deliberations, how that's going to look like. Okay?
And Dan, your idea was a great one. You forgot to mention it though, about the canned goods.
This is one of Scott's jokes.
For every time you bring up an item, that a budget item is less than $500, you have to donate canned goods.
Actually, my idea was if you bring one up, you could get. All right.
I thought it was $100 check towards the bike.
Yeah. All right.
We're all set.
All right. Good afternoon.
You know it's after lunch?
Right after lunch, Nick. That's
The worst slot that happens after lunch. You should all have a handout. Chief O'Brien placed at your seats. This handout basically gives you an overview of the assets of the department, goes through some of their vehicles, the breakdown of personnel. Page 2 has some graphs for you, calls for service, history of 7-year history of the department's budget, some facts, and the final page is a breakdown of 2011 calls. Just as a quick review, the fire chief operates a department that functions out of 3 facilities: Station 18 on Church Street, Station 19 in Bernardville on Mass Road, and Station 17 on Terrell Hill. Station 19 and 18 are manned 6 to 6, Sunday to Saturday. Station 17 is not manned on a permanent basis, if you will. It's a satellite station for call personnel. The chief operates a very diverse group of firefighters. Probably, is there any other department in the state that has? We have full-time firefighters that work 7 days a week, 6 to 6. We have part-time employees that man the Station 18, 2 EMT for DN EMTs that work from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And then we have a call force that fills in the fire side from 6 p. to 6 a. And call firefighters are paid on call. In other words, they're not on salary. When they respond to an incident, they're paid for their time, as well as training and other times when they're called into the station. And we had an announcement this past Monday night. We had a group of call firefighters that got together, went to Station 17, stripped half the roof, replaced ice and water shield, and reshingled it because there were some shingles missing. The roof was failing on that side. at a considerable savings to the town. You go out and contract that work. So the call force is very active. They do things other than just responding to calls. Next slide. This is just a basic overall 50,000 foot view. The fire budget, which is projected 2012, our budget to you is $2,379,965, which represents a 29,000 and change over 2011. The EMS budget is projected at 379,227, which is a decrease, a 98% decrease.
Can I ask you a question there?
Yes.
The fire budget does not include any permanent personnel salary modifications.
When you say salary mod, you'll see in the next slide, salary line has decreased.
Right. So what I'm inferring is there is no contract for,
Correct.
Are we in an evergreen status where people are still possibly getting steps or increases due to their?
No, there is no evergreen contract clause. They are in a frozen state.
A frozen state.
Until a
That's
contract,
the question.
until a contract is agreed to by the Board of Selectmen and the union. Currently, they're frozen. Next slide. So these are the increased budget lines that you'll see in our 2012 proposed budget. And most of the increases, if not all of them here, are postage, heating oil, $100 increase in postage, $1,700 in heating oil, $500 in electricity, $2,800 in propane, $3,500 in diesel fuel, and $615 in vehicle fuel. Some other changes, your regular wages, they have gone down, $36,538. Again, with that caveat, we don't have anything to put forward yet for a contract. Firefighter wages, call firefighter wages down $1,300. Special duty wages up $3,000, but again, that is offset with projected revenues for that line. Longevity down, retirement is up. Again, that's a cost handed down to us from the state, increases in retirement costs of the community. Workers' comp, benefits, again, insurance, workers' comp, those lines have increased. Employee development up $3,600, and again, that is a reflection of individuals in school taking classes towards a degree. And there's been a fire hydrant increase, and that is primarily through Manchester Waterworks.
Yeah, a couple things on fire hydrants. Right now, we were notified by Manchester Waterworks that they're introducing a 5% increase in fire hydrant fees to be assessed to communities like Goffstown. That won't be set in stone until their meeting in December. And at that point, they'll let us know if that actually passes or not. But that's what they're proposing, so we put that in to reflect that. It also included an additional hydrant in the village water district, where they added a hydrant there. Quick note, again, regular wages and call wages, people are like, well, why is it going down so much? We actually had 2 senior full-time firefighters retire. Of course, they're at the top level of their salary at that point. And we introduced entry-level folks to replace them. So there's a difference there. Call firefighter duties, more or less the same way. We've had some retirements in our call force where they have progressed up the call pay scale in a sense, and we've replaced it with some of the newer folks that are at the entry level. And what we do is when we calculate for that budget number that you see there, it's going on an average, and that average is reflected because of the change.
One of the things under hydrants, the fire department is really held captive to that. If the planning board next week approves a subdivision that on their plans has 13 new fire hydrants, the fire department has to assume the cost of the rental, that annual fee from the water district, whichever water district it's in. That's not something they have any power to say, no, we're not going to accept those. So that's really a fixed cost for them.
I have a question. Well, I didn't realize that you guys had special duty wages as well as the police department. What types of things are you?
Same thing, football games at St. Anselm's College where they want a standby ambulance, activities where they want a standby ambulance.
Oh, so they want somebody on site?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
For example, during the debates and also during the graduation events at the college campus. They'll want the fire alarms turned off so nobody gets really excited about the graduation in pulls the fire alarm. Creates a panic. So what we'll do is we'll post what we call fire watch, and that's part of that special meeting.
So if there, I know that there isn't that special revolving fund that they had talked about last year that got voted down, but if there were, would that include your guys' special duty wages, or would that have to be a separate?
That's open to debate. That's how you set it up. It
Okay.
could be set up individually, it could be set up combined.
Okay,
Yeah. Which is what we have had those discussions.
okay.
Next one.
This again,
For EMS.
EMS budget, workers' comp has increased, telecommunications has increased, and fuel. But again, relatively small amount.
This is the decrease.
Yeah. So we have mostly the decrease here. In the past, the EMS fund has been reimbursing the fire side for the EMS portion, if you will, when fire personnel go out on EMS calls. We didn't do that this year, and one of the primary reasons is the EMS fund was set up primarily to replace EMS equipment, and the biggest ticket item is the ambulance. If we continue to pull that $50,000 out, if you will, to round it off every year, that fund would not continue to increase. Ambulance purchases at about $190,000 really eats up a big chunk at one time. So in an effort to see that fund continuing to increase and build, we've stopped withdrawing that portion out.
And just as a side note that might come up, there are fees that are set annually by the Board of Selectmen with respect to what we charge people who use the ambulance service, and the fire chief makes recommendations to the board as to should there be any increases. And typically was Medicare plus 20%, so as the Medicare rate goes up, so does ours. And then if there's anything else that's kind of like an anomaly, the chief will come in and say, hey, I need to increase this particular fee.
There was some talk about using the third ambulance for doing transport. Has that gone anywhere to increase the revenue?
Well, actually, we've already used that third ambulance for the details at the college. As soon as we had that third ambulance, the college called us and said, we're interested in using you to stand by football games. So they have 5 or 6 games, and so we charge them, I believe, like $150 an hour, just to have our ambulance staff there, just for their event. And now that they see us there, they want it for the debates and other events that they have on campus. So you'll see that that's an added value. And just quickly, just looked at my notes this morning. Whenever another ambulance goes out for mechanical reasons, maintenance, whatever, it leaves that void. We're currently in the position where we need 2 ambulances to cover our community because of our call volume is increasing. And because of that, as we did maintenance and they went out for inspections later on, this past fall, that third ambulance actually transported 15 patients. Was needed to transport 15 patients during those void periods. That would have been revenue lost if we had called in, say, a Bedford or a Manchester or EMS to kind of do that transport for us. And right now, our average transport is $600 to $700. But we haven't explored the non-emergency transfer.
What I'm getting at is we have 2 ambulances always on standby, and the activity of those, if we go by the stations, more often than not, the ambulance would be out doing something than in.
Correct.
And so it's the third ambulance that was looking at different times. If it was the same way, it was being used more than it was not being used.
I think currently
I'm not sure I understand
the
the
third
answer.
ambulance now is more of a reserve ambulance, unless it's going out on a detail or
That's a
recovery.
backup ambulance.
It's not being used.
Except for those special details that have been prearranged.
Part of our conversations were, however, to explore going forward, providing transfer services at the county farm or some of the
Nursing homes.
nursing homes. We haven't gotten to that point yet, but that was part of the consideration for it.
I think it's appropriate to bring up, it was when we bought the new ambulance, we had a choice of selling the old one for $15,000. That was the right number, somewhere in that ballpark. And so it was a decision, do we get $15,000 or do we keep it as a reserve backup for the issues you're just discussing? And it shows that it's a good decision, bringing in a little revenue that would otherwise.
Why your numbers are over halfway there to set cost.
And it's one of those items, as soon as we hear more of that the ambulance being available for detailed events, for example, the mansion does a marathon every year, and it comes through Goffstown. And in the past, they've relied on a private service to watch over their runners. Now, we can offer that service for them, for the runners going through Goffstown, and we can get revenue.
Any questions on the operating budget before we move into CIP?
CIP, there's two particular items that are on the board for next budget. And one of them is, we call it the Fire Station Improvement Program. And the reason why this is being introduced is, in the past, I know people who are senior in the Budget Committee realized that we were looking for a centralized fire station in the past. And the ticket for that was approximately $7 million. We had a fire station location study done, and it looked at an ideal location centralized to put that station. Since then, the economy was the way it is, and also other factors kind of creeped up in the community that impact that particular idea. One of them is everything from the traffic calming devices that have been installed in the community, the roundabouts. They do slow our response time down, and we're aware of that. So is it feasible at this time to really focus on having a centralized fire station approach now that we're installing all these devices in the community that would slow traffic down in general forms anyway? So we're now kicking away from that centralized fire station approach and now going to a upgrade approach to our current facilities. Facilities that we have now, the locations are okay. They may not be ideal, but as the community is changing, they may become more ideal, especially as far as emergency response goes. So it's a phased approach. We're looking at all the facilities and upgrading them to current standards so they're functional to today's operations. 3 stations, 18, 19, and 17, like Nick was saying. 18 is the actual oldest station that we have in our facilities. It was built back in the 50s, so the station is approximately 55 years old. It was built back when the call volume in that particular station wasn't very high. We estimated it's probably the same call volume that we have in a month today that we do in a year that did back in the 50s. We put a lot of demands on this structure now, where our offices are located there. We have overnight personnel there covering the ambulance, and there's activities there constantly throughout the day. And shifts are there for 12 hours. And also, discussions in the past were trying to find an apparatus that would fit in the station without customizing the truck so we would do so. So the station has a lot of aging. It shows its age. If you've ever been in there, you're welcome to stop by anytime. I think we've done a great job trying to maintain this building so it would hold up over the years. But we're at that point where we've maxed out our use of the station, and it needs a upgrade. For example, electrical, plumbing, and heating and cooling are all items that we're currently dealing with. I know Dave Roberge, facilities person for the town, has come through with many folks that have done energy audits and have always highlighted the fire facilities as one of the worst offenders as far as energy efficiency. We're going to try to fix that, okay? A few things we want to do is obviously upgrade upgrade the electrical, heating, and plumbing in there to modern uses. For example, right now, whenever the fax machine wakes up to receive a fax, the lights dim in the office, just to give you an idea how much we really put a demand on our system. Also, just if you've ever taken a walk by the station or stopped by, it's really getting cranked in there. This modern apparatus is not getting smaller. It was designed in a time where apparatus was almost half the size it is today. And here we are, we're just about to take delivery of another tanker pumper that is going to be about 35 feet long and it's about 100 inches wide.
Chief, how many times did you have to modify Station 18 over the course of years? From single doors to the large door, raising the header?
Doors once. One time the ventilation system. That's about it.
So we haven't kept up. We've gone from apparatus where the guys would hang on in the back, if you can remember that far back, to now having requirements that guys have to be in seats and then enclosed cabs. Now it's gotten to the point where you can't take your helmet off and just put it down because that's a projectile. It has to be in its own compartment or in its own holder. So all of these things over the years have added to the size of the apparatus. And the building is just was never designed for apparatus as large as it is now.
So we're going to try to address that when we look at upgrading. Again, we're not going overboard with an upgrade. It's just to get us to where we're functional today and for the next couple of decades. Realizing that maybe 20 years from now, 25 years from now, a centralized station may be the best approach, but then again, that decision is going to be made then.
And if I could, Chief, just on that, we talked about a central station. Even if the town tomorrow decided to go with a central station, we decided to absorb the huge budget increase to have 24-hour full-time firefighters, we're still going to need a call force. And these stations will still be needed for the call force as satellite stations. So it's going to be a long time, I think, and that's my own personal opinion, before we're going to say we're going to build a central fire station and all these other stations are going to go away. You would need a very large full-time call force. And I don't see that, at least in this context.
And Nick, if I could, when, oftentimes I get asked, well, how come the board is making an about face on X, Y, or Z? Well, we have to. I mean, we don't have a choice. I mean, you saw what we've had to do with our road program in terms of trying to do more with less. Same thing here. I mean, we did have a plan for a central fire station. However, we have to reevaluate all the time, and this is a byproduct of that. We have to change up what we were doing to try to pay for what we need, but with a more modest amount of money.
If I could give you just one example, the chief, through an analysis of the calls, determined, remember I mentioned that we have part-time EMS personnel? We have 2 individuals every night, 7 days a week, that come in from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. They are part-time per diem EMS personnel. They staff the ambulance. Through an analysis of the calls, it was determined that it was better for them to be staffed at Station 18 than Station 19 because of the travel time and the volume of calls. They currently sleep in the basement of the station. There have been improvements to the basement to make it livable, but it's not an ideal. That station was designed when it was almost a pure call force. There were some full-time staff, but it was more of an administrative type building versus a functioning 24-hour type station.
Right. And part of the program doesn't doesn't look at Station 18. It looks at all 3 stations. So, for example, Station 17, the one on Terrell Hill Road, although we call it call stations, it's not staffed on a daily basis. That facility is going to need to be looked at in the next year or 2 to upgrade heating and insulation, the size of the doors, the approach the trucks have to make when they're backing into the station. They're probably less than the scale of looking at Station 18, but we're still having to address that. And that'll come in future budgets. And then 19 will come at some point after that. Actually, 19 of all the stations, it's in the best shape right now, but it's going to need probably some some improvements within the next 10 years. So looking at what we're looking at for next year for Station 18 is designing additional bay area. That's what bay area, what I'm calling is areas where we can park the apparatus inside. So this will be a new constructed facility, probably off, if you look staring at the front of the station, you're looking off to the right of it where we have a big parking lot, and we would construct two large bays or garage doors to accommodate the larger apparatus, the modern apparatus. And then at that point, we're also going to be improving and upgrading the electrical, the plumbing, the HVAC to meet the demands of this facility. Energy improvements, every avenue that we're going to be looking at when we look at upgrading the facility, what can we do within the money that's given to us to upgrade the efficiency of this building? One of the things that we're going to be looking at is eliminating that structure you see up to the top. It's called the hose tower. Right now, all the modern hose that we have now does not require to be hung and dried prior to going back on the trucks. Because hose becomes so expensive, we've got it's called wet pack hose. You clean it, it's wet, you throw it back on the truck, and it dries and it doesn't damage the hose. So we've made that investment, but in the meantime, that hose tower is like a chimney for all the heat that's in that building. It just sucks all the heat out, and so we're constantly heating that area, trying to keep the bay area warm to accommodate the apparatus. Another thing we're going to be looking at is updating the office and the living quarters there to accommodate today's operations and operations into the future. Again, they're not that elaborate, but again, it's looking at the footprint that we have and see what we can do, see what we can squeak out of it. We're going to be installing fire sprinklers into the facility. Again, when you look at your fire stations, although fire sprinklers are mandated in the sense of in this community, if we were to build a totally new fire station, we would have to do it on the fire code. But for a upgrade, we like to include that in there because look at what you have invested in one facility. If this facility were to burn down with our equipment in there, what a loss to this community.
The irony.
The irony, it could happen because
We station,
it can happen. And it's like any other aging facility, it runs the risk of something happening with the electrical system or the heating system that may cause a problem. So putting fire sprinklers is just a small amount that we can do to invest millions of dollars worth of just trucks in here, equipment, and just the loss of the community if we were to lose the station even for a short period of time. It also includes a diesel exhaust removal system. Right now, if you go in our station, rub your hand across the surface, and we try to keep the place clean, and bring your hand up, it's going to probably be a little black or gray. That's the diesel exhaust that comes into the building. Every time we start the trucks up and roll them out for a call or any other activity, we do our best to try to use a fan to get it out of there, but it still comes into the living and office areas. And wherever we can to improve our operational spaces for now and for the future, this is where we're going to handle it. The price tag for this is going to be $1.6 million, and looking to promote this in a special article through a bond. We feel that it can be palatable for the taxpayers. Any questions? Okay, the second thing that we're going to see, also probably it's going to be under a special article, is reintroduction of our capital reserve fund to replace fire apparatus.
Just one second, I just want to emphasize, these are proposed from the fire department. The board of selectmen have not discussed special articles yet. That's in the future, so these aren't given.
Okay. Initially, we established the modern capital reserve fund. I believe there's probably been some capital reserve funds in the past, but back in 2008, the voters again voted to reintroduce a capital reserve fund for fire apparatus, and at that time it was $420,000. And because of that, we're able to utilize those funds to be a match payment to the grants that we got for the new ladder truck. If we didn't have that, the $1 million ladder truck that we have now would not be sitting in that station. Secondly, we used pretty much the remaining portion of it to help deaden the blow for the cost of purchasing a new pumper tanker that we will take delivery at the end of the year. So that fund has been, in a sense, has been depleted. What I'd like to do is use $250,000 a year to that capital reserve fund to get us in a position where when we're faced with a FRS purchase, we're not in a position where we're going, oh God, we're going to come up with the money. We've got other projects that are coming up, and it kind of deadens the spikes that could happen in the tax rate, because these trucks are expensive. We all know we have $1 million for a ladder truck. We're just spending another $550,000 for a pumper tanker. They're not getting any cheaper because of technology, safety demands, and just the fact that the way we're looking at FRS now is we're trying to combine as much duties and responsibilities on these equipment, on these apparatus, so they can handle all these calls. So in the future, what are we looking at? We're looking at the forestry in 2013, another engine in 14, another one in 17. The squad is kind of like a support truck that we have. It has a pump on it. It's kind of a rescue truck. That's in 19, and one of the rescue boats in 2019. That doesn't even account for the fact that we probably need to replace our SCBAs, the air tanks that our firefighters wear on their back, in 2015 at a tune of probably $250,000. So again, there's other projects that are going to be coming up between facilities and major equipment purchases, and then we have to worry about apparatus. So like DPW, we're very capital dependent, and this is one way to handle that. So
I was going to say that for half of the folks in the budget committee, they probably don't know the last 5 or 6 years of history, whereby we had 2 ladder trucks. We replaced that ladder truck with 1. That was purchased primarily through a grant. So we also had, the chief has embarked on a pretty aggressive, I would say, vehicle consolidation, which has reduced our fleet by, I think, 3 pieces of apparatus. And these pieces are not inexpensive. I mean, a ladder truck is $750,000 to $1 million. Engines are $500,000 to $600,000. Every time we can reduce one of these things, it's less cost to the community, less maintenance, and we've been able to do that. Secondly, I just want to try to provide some of the framework of the history. We've gone to a increased hours of our force in terms of now it's 7 days a week. Before it was 5. You obviously have seen we've had a nice participation in our call firefighter force, which is a big savings. We have done a much better job of offering services on the ambulance side, which is the primary driver of our budget, actually, of our calls for service are EMS related. So we've ramped that up. And if you look at the fire department's budget over the last, say, 5 years, it has seen very, very modest increases, and in some cases there were decreases. So been able to do a lot of good things in the fire department over the last 5 or 6 years to try to, again, lower capital expenditures, trying to keep up with all the service, and Rich, you deserve a lot of kudos for that. Knowing that we've got a lot of challenges here, so fire department, I think, has done great work.
Thank you. And I think we've eked out as much grant funding as possible on items that are just critical for us, whether it's the radio system upgrades, to the ladder truck, to staffing, you name it. We've been trying to eke out all that as funding as possible. In fact, we still have a couple grants that are pending. One of them would be to replace the forestry truck. We hope to hear possibly in the springtime if we get awarded that. Again, that would relieve a lot off this fund if we did get awarded that. And then secondly, we're looking for items in this list to upgrade facilities. One of them is fire sprinklers for Station 18 and Station 19, and diesel exhaust removal systems for both the Penarville Station and the Village Station. Again, those are in grant, and it's very competitive. We won't know if we get awarded probably this spring, but again, it's items that we could possibly help deaden the blow for. for this particular improvement.
And Brian, just to let you know that we did get a off for our tanker pumper. It was one that was off the lot, shall we say, right? It was sort of,
It's a cut,
Yeah.
but though for the ambulance.
I'm sorry, the ambulance was the ambulance.
Demo.
Yeah, demo unit. We got a demo
It's a
unit.
demo unit, so it saved us some money there. And again, it's although it's the same year model as the other ambulance that's out of Bernardville, but it was brand new. It had very little miles on it, and it had fresh warranty on it. So
So we do that when we can. Just want to let you know, that was an example of.
The issue with the tanker pumper, unfortunately, there aren't manufacturers out there just creating tanker pumpers that they have them as demos. It's really a specialized piece of equipment and.
Yeah, I just want to highlight that when we can, we do try to go that route.
right. Then again, tanker pumper is taking an old engine that doesn't work anymore and a tanker that's over 20 years old and consolidating it to one truck. Could that be looked at in the future? Absolutely. Maybe there's a time frame where we're looking at replacing the squad, the engine, depending on how technology evolves on fire apparatus, that we can combine the two, and we'll do the same here. But we're not there yet.
How much of that, the Schaefer grant, you had three firemen on?
Two. Well, Safer Grant funded two firefighters, and it's got a 5-year performance period to it. And the way it works is it's a $1 million grant. First year pays the most, and then second year, so on. So this will be the last year we actually still get funds from the grant, and then we have to keep them another year. So the end of the performance period will be June of 2013.
So what amount of money is involved in that line one for this year?
I believe it's, you'll see under fire department revenues from that grant, it's approximately $25,000. That's reflecting the Safer Grant.
Chief, so in 13, we go back to volunteers on that position, or would we keep them?
Those positions are not obligated to be held at that point.
We wouldn't anticipate going to call positions for there, because currently we have both stations, 18 and 19, manned 7 days a week, 2 shifts. So if we were to take those 2 positions and eliminate them, again, then we would have to reduce service or coverage in one of those stations, Monday through Sunday, or Saturday through Sunday, 6 to 6.
And just looking back at the history of why we have full-time is the fact that the majority of people work during the daytime hour, and nobody's available to respond if there's an emergency, or commits the amount of time that's needed, because the fact that if you're called firefighter EMT, you came in for an ambulance call at 8 o'clock, you may not get back to the station until probably 1 because of back-to-back calls, and you just get tied up doing it. So again, your whole day is absorbed.
And the other way to look at it as well is the mindset. When the grant became available, the town didn't say, oh, there's a grant, let's hire 2 more people. We looked at, we need 2 more full-time firefighters, let's apply for a grant to reduce that load on the town for that 5-year period. So the need was demonstrated at the time, and the grant was sought so that we could reduce the burden on the town.
That's what allowed us to get to that 7-day schedule. Are there any other questions for the fire chief? Elizabeth?
On the capital reserve fund, I mean, we're talking about putting money in, it would be for 2012, but I mean, you've got a steady stream of purchases every year. So that reserve fund isn't gonna have a chance, I mean, all we're gonna be doing is basically getting a jump on it by 1 year, because it's not gonna have a chance to accumulate
Yes and
very
no.
much money.
Yes and no, in
right?
the sense that we did apply for a grant for the forestry piece of apparatus, and if we were fortunate enough to get it, then our next purchase might not be until 2014.
It's a 100% grant?
It's 80. It's
So
pretty.
it's 95.
Yeah, that's pretty
for us.
substantial.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So, and then, depending upon how things go with the engines in 2014 and 2017, we may get a 2 or 3 year jump on it. And even when you don't, your we're also offsetting the cost of that apparatus, so I would assume by then it would probably be a $600,000 or more price tag, and if you could offset it, it does help.
And the forestry and the boat are not $500,000 purchases.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, the forestry we estimated about 125,000, and a boat would be looking at 2019 could be $20,000 to $40,000.
Okay, because I mean, this is the whole idea, is that you put that amount of money into it every year for several years, not just a one-time shot, so.
Bill, you had a question?
Yeah, just a follow-up on Elizabeth's point. The capital reserve fund has gone to the CIP. And CIP has looked at this, and they basically come out with a CIP plan which goes out basically for the next 7 years, plus the current year. And they look at the purchases that need to be made, and their recommendation, which came through, is that if the town were to put a certain amount of money aside every year, that when it comes time to purchase these vehicles, there will be money that's available so that all of a sudden you don't get the big hit. If we say, well, we're not going to spend this $250,000 this year, we're going to just forget about it. And the next large purchase, not the smaller purchases, but the next large purchase is when, Chief?
2014.
And what is the amount?
At that point, you're looking at $500,000 to $600,000.
Right, well, that's the point. So if we defer putting some money away today, when tomorrow comes back, then we're going to need about $650,000. And then we're going to be looking at it and how do we fund it. And at that point, we're going to say, well, this is one big chunk that we're suddenly going to have to come off up because we don't have money in the fund to offset it, like the piece of apparatus that we will be taking delivery on this year that we had money in a capital fund to offset.
And then does this, on the grants that you're writing, do they ever ask about if we have a capital reserve fund? Does that give us a competitive edge on the grants?
They don't ask about that, what gives you competitive edge is more on your need, your call volume, population that you're going to serve, and really this purchase is going to make a real impact in your service delivery. And when you look at, for example, with the forestry,
You would have a much better chance than the city of Manchester getting.
right, because if we have a lot of issues, with, say if a fire got out of control, it could be a very large fire. So we need a rapid truck to go and get in there and control it. And it's replacing a truck that's a 1960s vintage Jeep, versus something that's more modern.
But I think the point is a good one, because in the past when we had money in our reserve fund, it helped us with purchases for one, and it does give you the ability, if there is a grant out there for, let's say it's a 20% match, and it's a $600,000 fire engine, and you need to come up with $120,000, it would almost, we may not even be in a position to even apply for it, because we have to pull the $120,000 from somewhere else within our total operating budget, where if it wasn't a capital reserve fund, we would have the ability to use that. So it is a good point.
Well, I know that LCHIP, which wouldn't be for you guys, but I mean, it's something we've used for the HTC, they specifically asked on that grant application, do you have a capital reserve fund? And we got points to get.
Right, and that because that shows the community's commitment.
And also it shows that you're ready to go. When you get that grant, you are ready to go.
I guess the way this grant is designed is if you're being looked at as possibly being a recipient of this award, that they send you a questionnaire, and the questionnaire is, okay, in this particular application, if we realize in this particular case with a ladder truck, we realize your ladder truck's going to cost $1 million, but if we give you $712,000, can you still get this project done if we give you the grant? Yes or no? And like I said, it wasn't for this capital reserve fund, we'd have to say no. Or it's kind of like a big question mark maybe, because we'd have to have a special meeting or take it to the voters for a special appropriation. In this particular case, we brought to the selectmen something that absolutely, it makes perfect sense. So I think under the Assistance to Firefighter Grant Program, they don't mind seeing that capital reserve fund because it gets the project done.
All right, are there any other questions?